Deep behind enemy lines in FEMA Region 9 in Las Vegas, Nevada, here's your host, Matt Maldonado, on Madness4life News. Welcome, my friends. My name is Matt Maldonado here in FEMA Region 9 in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is Madness4life News. I'm your host, Matt Maldonado. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the Sunday edition, July 29th, 2012. For some reason, I said June, the last podcast. Again, I have June of the brain here. I'm going to be getting into other false flag operations, as well as I'm going to leave off where I left off with the Colorado massacre that happened about a week ago. And I'm going to get into why the whole thing is actually staged. That's an article from Infowars.com. And I'm also going to get into the UN gun treaty. So strap yourselves in for the Madness4life News podcast, number 20. Here we go. This is from Infowars.com. This was published basically yesterday. Overwhelming evidence mounts connecting Colorado shooting staged. It is now clear that the Colorado shooting is a staged event and mirrors previous shootings, including the assassination of Robert Kennedy, blamed on the drug patsy Sirhan. Excuse me. Recently produced... That's someone was calling me. Recently produced evidence reveals that Sirhan was not the shooter and was framed. In the federal court last November, lawyers argued that Sirhan was an involuntary involuntary patsy. Not patsy, it's precedent... basically patsy in the crimes being committed because he was subjected to hypnosis programming and memory implementation techniques which rendered him unable to consistently control his thoughts and actions at the time the crimes were being committed, according to court papers. You can actually go to the article that links right to it, and it is the this is basically CNN.com. Basically, convicted RFK assassin Sirhan seeks prison release because there's overwhelming evidence that the fact that he was under hypnosis. Holmes psychiatric worked for Pentagon. New demanding details on the Colorado shooting now surface on a daily basis. The latest is that the highest honors neuroscience student, James Holmes, were seeing a psychiatric... psychologist. Holmes has a patient of Dr. Leon Fenton at the University of Colorado. Fenton worked for the Air Force in the Texas and was known for dispensing dangerous pharmaceutical drugs, according to the Washington Post. You can go to that article, and it says Colorado shooting suspect was seeing psychiatrist. Defense says it's a psychiatrist, because I'm telling you this right now, psychiatrists don't really help you. They make the whole situation worse. But hey, I gotta grow up, even though I would like to see humanity grow up for once in their lives, but that'll never happen. Let's continue here. The doctor's background came to light after the corporate media reported Holmes allegedly mailed a notebook full of details about how he was going to kill people to her before the attack. Among the images shown in the sparrow-bound notebooks pages were gun-wielding stick figures blowing away other stick figures. Fox News reported that was... Yeah, you can go to the link there. Exclusive movie massacre. Suspects sent a chilling notebook to psychiatrist before attack. And it's funny how the fact that they obviously go, oh, we found a notebook. It's like the same that somebody gets commits suicide and go, oh, okay, we found a suicide note. You know, it's the same thing as like if someone gets shot in the back of the head, they go, okay, we found a suicide note. I think that's what they did with that congresswoman. No, that was that senator woman from Georgia. They shoot her and her husband in the back of the head, and they go, okay, we found a suicide note. But she got shot in the back of the head. Doesn't matter. We found it. But hey, that's okay. Continuing here. This is an obvious attempt to hastily arrange a backstory on Holmes and portray him as a murderous psychopath. It is a key element in the narrative portraying him as a lone wolf, which is the preferred government story when it conducts false flag operations for political gain and to implement political opinion. Now, mind control, and MK Ultra. And by the way, I'm going to be getting into that false flag operation too. Yeah. Supported Oklahoma City bombing mastermind Timothy McVeigh was under the care of Dr. Louis Jolyon West of UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Institute following his arrest. Dr. West is a sinister creation of the CIA's mind control Finnerty. Sorry about that. I had to pause it to make sure that it was working. You can see that it is working, so I'm going to continue right now. I thought I wasn't able to record it right. I thought I was having bugs. Usually my microphone has bugs for some reason, and it gets this really crisp noise or something. It's really strange, but not really crisp. I mean, like, you know, that sound. But continuing here. Among other totalitarian projects, he has studied the use of drugs as a to interperson pollution or assault, and employed come on, man, why can't I say this word? I know this word. Come on, penanries. Sorry, it's I don't know what's wrong with me today. I can't even read. In the field of remote electric mind control experimentation at UCLA, writes Alex Constantine. You can go to that link. It goes right to the water.to. It talks about literally the mind control and Timothy McVeigh's rise from robotic soldier to mad bomber. You can go to that website and click that on there. All right, continuing. Shut up, Matt, and just continue, you idiot. The CIA's use of mind control to create killers is a matter of historic record. MK Ultra was the code name for a covert, illegal CIA human research program ran by the Office of Scientific Intelligence that came to light in 1975 through investigation by the church community and by... Hope my mic is doing okay. All right. By a presidential commission known as the Rockefeller Commission. 14-year CIA veteran Victor, was it Marcini? Instance that the program is ongoing and has not been abandoned, Paul Joseph Lawson wrote on Friday. Judge opposes gag order to prevent release of information constructing official narrative. The judge presiding over Holmes' case has imposed a gag order in the courtroom. District Court Judge William Blair Sylvester has also ordered the University of Colorado not to release his school records after the media filled a request for the documents. The gag order was issued after video from the courtroom showed an obviously drugged James Holmes. The order bears attorneys from publicly commenting matters, including evidence. Rather, a plea deal is in the works or the results of any examinations or tests, the AP reported. The effort is an attempt to prevent the media and researchers from discovering the obvious. James Holmes is a patsy and possibly the victim of mind control. He does not fit the profile of a mass murderer who understands weaponry and pre-military equipment. That's true. And by the way, I'm going to say this. There was actually also evidence saying that he was also the guy that dropped the killers off. There was actually 2 killers that actually had a hostage, shot the hostage. It was a little girl, by the way. Shot the hostage, left the guns there, and just left Holmes there. And they go, okay, he was the killer. It's like, okay. You can actually look that up. I think that was on a video of. It was also on mainstream news. It was talking about that there was other killers. And even there's eyewitnesses saying that there's other killers too. But yet Holmes is the lone gunman, and he's the one that should get arrested. The effort is an attempt to prevent the media and researchers from discovering. I already said that crap. I already said that. Shooter or shooters. Wait, I didn't even finish. He's not on anybody's radar scene. Nothing, a police officer told the New York Times. This guy is somewhat of an enigma. Nobody knows anything about him. Shooter or shooters. Obviously, military following reports that the shooter resembled the Joker character from Batman. Witness said he was in full riot gear. He looked like he was from a SWAT team and was dressed from head to toe in SWAT gear with Kevlar. He looked like one of the cops. That's what was really confusing to us. Following skepticism of the official narrative that the unemployed former student could not have possibly afford to buy expensive weapons and prime military equipment. It is said the weapons and ammunitions alone cost around $15,000. The corporate media flooded the story that he was the recipient of grant money from the National Institute of Health, the NIH. Because first of all, if you had that kind of money, you actually... Don't they follow what you spend on that grant? You know, don't you have to like give the money to the recipients of the grant? Say, okay, this is what I'm using it for, stuff like that, and actually they follow your records. Let's just move on here. Explained the grant include a $21,600 stipend per year in 12 monthly installments to help defer living expenses while they pursue their academic research training experience. Millions of Americans do not believe official narrative. This is the last one. I think I talked about this too on the Mike Adams article, because it was in that article too that had these kind of questions and research. The Colorado shooting story is unveiling like the Fast and Furious story before it. Millions of Americans do not believe the official narrative and find the explanation with that a shy neuroscience student suddenly turned into a mass murderer impossible. Many also find it suspicious that the event occurred as the globalists at the UN, the United Nations, are putting finishing touches on a treaty that will eventually ban all firearms and effectively disarmed every American. So, hey, you can believe what you want. You can believe he's the lone gunman. Hey, you can believe whatever. You can just research it yourself. But instead, we don't want to do that because we want to literally state that this person is the lone gunman. Anyway, continuing here with the false flag operations. But what is a false flag? Well, in the other article, I actually basically said what a false flag is, but I'm going to basically give you that type of list here on Wikipedia. What is a false flag operation? False flag operations, aka black flag. Operations are covert operations designed to deceive in such a way that the operations appear as though they are being carried out by other entities. The name is deferred from the military concept of flying false colors, that is, flying the flag of a country or other or other than one's own. It's like Al-Qaeda doing that in the basically in Syria and in Libya. False flag operations are not, well, and also the Operation Himmler. False flag operations are not limited to war and covert counterinsurgency operations and can be used during peacetime. Naval warfare. The practice was considered acceptable in naval warfare, provided the false flag was lower and the national flag raised before engaging in battle. Cruisers operated in such a fashion in both world wars as did Q ships, while mercenary vessels, I can't say that word, I'm sorry, which encouraged to use false flags for protection. The 1914 Battle of Trinidad was between the cruisers RMS Carmenia and MSS, not MSS, it's SMS Cap Trafalgar, which had previous distinctions with themselves as each other. One of the most notable examples was in World War II when the German commerce raider Morgan, discussed as a Dutch merchant ship suppressed and sunk the Austrian light cruiser HMAS Sydney in 1941, causing the greatest record loss of life on an Austrian warship. Is that Australian? Yes, it's Australian, not Austrian. You moron, Matt. The Cormoran was also fatally crippled in the encounter and its crew was captured, but it was a considerable psychological victory for the Germans. The British used a ensign in the St. Nazaire raid and captured a German codebook. The old destroyer Cap Belton, which the British planned to sacrifice in the operation, was provided with cosmetic motivations, cutting the ship's funnels and chamfering the edges to reassemble a German destroyer. The British were able to get within 2 miles of the harbor before the defenses responded, where the explosive rigged Capbelton and commandos successfully disabled or destroyed the key dock structures of the port. And it goes on from there, from airfare, landfare, airfare. It's air warfare, land warfare, as pretext for war, other operations, and stuff like that. Now, let's get into this operation right now. Operation... Where the heck are you? Operation Himmler, known as also Operation... What are we doing? There it is, Operation Himmler, less often known as Operation Conserve or Operation Cannon Goods, was a false flag project planned by Nazi Germany to create the appearance of Polish aggression against Germany, which was subsequently used by Nazi propaganda to justify the invasion of Poland. Operation Himmler was arguably the first act of the Second World War in Europe. The plan for months prior to the 1939 invasion, Germany newspapers and politicians like Adolf Hitler had carried out a national and international propaganda campaign accusing Polish authorities of organizing or tolerating violent ethnic cleansing of ethnic Germans living in Poland. On August 22nd, Adolf Hitler told his generals, "I will provide a propagandized casus belli. Its credibility doesn't matter. The victor will not be asked. Rather, he told the truth." The plan, named after its organizer, Heinrich Himmler, was supervised by Reinhard Heydrich and by Heinrich Miller. The goal was this false flag project was to create the appearance of British aggression against Germany, which was subsequently used to justify the invasion of Poland. Hitler also meant hoped to confuse the Polish allies, the United Kingdom and France, to delay or prevent their declaration of war on Germany. They weren't really going to attack them anyway, the United Kingdom, because they paid him very well to do so, to do these kind of operations. Anyway, on to the execution, because that was the plan I just read. This is the execution. The operation were most carried out on August 31st, 1939. The operation, as well as the main German offensive, was originally scheduled for August 26th. The shifting diplomatic situation results in delay under August 31st, September 1st, but one of the German undercover units was not informed and carried out its attack on a German custom post. Several Germans were killed before the incident ended. The operation were carried out by agents of the SS and the SD. The German troops, dressed in Polish uniforms, would storm various border buildings, scare the locals with insurgent shots, like warning shots, carry out acts of vandalism, and retreat, leaving behind dead bodies in Polish uniforms. The bodies were, in fact, prisoners from concentration camps. They were dressed in Polish uniforms, killed, and often by a lethal injection of a poison, then shot for appearance, and left behind. They were described as conserve, or aka canning goods, in planning documents, which also led to the more informal name of the operation, Operation Conserve, or Operation Canning Goods. By the way, there were several separate operations, including stage attacks on the German radio station Send Geswix. That's why there was a GLEIWITZ. There's an incident of that. That's why it's called the Geswitz incident. Anyway, continuing here, this was arguably the most notable of Operation Himmler. Operations see the incident for details. The German custom stations at, was it Wackland? Today part of, I can't really say that word. The Forest Serve station in Petchen. So you can actually read the other stuff of the incidents and stuff like that. It continues on from there. Now, I'm going to get into the next covert operation, which is, I'll write that down here, the Lavon Affair. That's the next one. Then after that's going to be Operation Northwoods, then Operation Gladio, then Operation Mountain Guardian, and last but not least, the Project MK Ultra. Now, the Lavon Affair. I'm not really going to get into much of it. I'm just going to get into the beginning of what it means and the aim and the secret cell. And that's it. And then, because it continues on from there, you can actually look that up on Wikipedia. That gives you all the information there. Now, the Lavon Affair refers to a failed Israeli covert operation, codename Operation Susanna, conducted in Egypt in the summer of 1954 as part of the false flag operation. A group of Egyptian Jews were reassessed by Israeli military intelligence for plans to plant bombs inside Egyptian, American, and British-owned targets. The attacks were to be blamed on the Muslim Brotherhood and Egyptian communists solidified or local nationalists with the aim of creating a climate of violence and sustainability to induce the British government to retain its occupying troops in Egypt's Suez Canal zone. The operation caused no casualties except for those members of the cell who committed suicide after being captured. The operation became known as the Lavon Affair after the Israeli Defense Minister Penes Lavon, who was forced to resign because of the incident, or as the unfortunate affair or the bad business. After being denied for 51 years, the serving agents were in 2005 officially honored with a certificate of application by the Israeli President Kazeva. I can't even say the name, sorry. Now, the aim. In early 1950s, the United States intended a more activist policy of support for Egyptian nationalism. Oh, I'm gonna get some water here. There we go. This was, continuing here, this was often in contrast with British policies of maintaining its regional, what is it? It's not ceremony, it's harmony. I can't even say that word, sorry. It's Hegemone. Israel feared that this policy, which encouraged Britain to withdraw its military forces from the Suez Canal, would embolden Egyptian President Sirsi's military towards Israel. Basically bringing his military to Israel and fighting him. Israel first sought to influence this policy through diplomatic means, but was frustrated. In the summer of 1954, Colonel Ghibli, the chief of Israel's military intelligence chef. Oh man. Something wrong with you, Matt. All right, Ayman intended Operation Susanna in order to reverse that decision. The goal of the operation was to carry out bombings, and other acts of terrorism in Egypt with the aim of creating an atmosphere in which the British and American opponents of British withdrawal from Egypt would be able to gain the upper hand and block the British withdrawal from Egypt. According to a historian who wrote one of the most detailed accounts, the assignment was to undermine Western convinced in the existing Egyptian regime by generating public insecurity and actions to bring about arrests, demonization, and acts of revenge, while totally consoling the Israeli factor. The team was accordingly argued to avoid detection so that suspicion would fall on the Muslim Brotherhood, the communist unsuspective, was it malcontents? There we go, malcontents, and local nationalists. Last but not least, the secret cell. I'm going to be getting into that. Let's see. The top secret cell, Unit 131. Which was to carry out the operation, had existed since 1948, and under Ayman since 1950. At the time of Operation Susanna, Unit 131 was the subject of a bitter dispute between Ayman, military intelligence, and Mossad, a national intelligence agency, over who should control it. Unit 131 operatives had been reassessed several years before when the Israeli intelligence officer Dar averted in Cairo. My ears are hurting me. Hold on. Yowzer, that hurts. In Cairo, undercover as a British citizen of Gibraltar, I can't even say the word, called John Daring. He had reassessed several Egyptian Jews who had previously been active in illegal immigration activities and trained them for covert operations. And it just goes on from there. Now, let's go to Operation Northwoods. Operation Northwoods. There it is. Operation Northwoods. Here we go. Let's see how much time I got here. I have enough time. I have like not that much. So I'm just going to try to breeze through this and then get into Operation Gladio. Oh, come on. There we go. All right. Operation Northwoods was a series of false flag proposals that organized in 1962 within the United States government, and which the Kennedy administration rejected. The proposals called for the CIA or other operatives to commit acts of terrorism in United States cities and elsewhere. Like in where? Cuba. Okay, let's keep going here. These acts of terrorism were to be blamed on who else? Cuba, in order to create public support for a war against that nation, which had recently become communist under Fidel Castro. One part of Operation Northwoods was to develop a communist Cuban terror government campaign, actually, in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington. Operation Northwoods proposals include hijacking and bombings found by the introduction of phony evidence that would implement the Cuban government. It stated the desired resulted from the execution of this plan would be a place the United States in the apparent position of suffering defensible grievances from a ranch and responsible government of Cuba, and to prevent an international image of a Cuban threat to peace in the Western Hemisphere. Several other proposals were included within Operation Northwoods, including real or stimulant actions against various U.S. military and civilian targets. The plan was drafted by the Joint Chief of Staff, signed by Chairman Lyman. Zizer? I can't even say his fucking name. Sorry. Oh, I said fuck. And sent to the Secretary of Defense, although part of the United States government's Cuban Project, anti-communist, in intensive Operation Northwoods was never officially attempted. It was authorized by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but then rejected by none other than President Kennedy. According to current released documentation, none of the operation became active under the appearance of the Operation Northwoods proposals. Original origins and public release. The main proposals was presented in a document entitled "Justification for U.S. Military Intervention in Cuba," a top secret collection of draft memorandums written by the Department of Defense, DOD, and the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, the JCS. The document was presented by the Joint Chiefs of Staffs of the Staff of Security of Secretary of State. Staff to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara on March 13th, 1962, as a preliminary submission for planning proposals. No, it's not proposals. It's proposes the Joint Chiefs of Staff recommends that both the covert and overt assessments aspects of any such operation by assigned to them. The previous secret document was originally made public on November 18th, 1997 by the John F. Kennedy Assassination Record Review Board, a U.S. federal agency overseeing the release of government records related to John F. Kennedy's assassination. A total of 1,521 pages of secret military records covering 1962 and to 1964 were declassified by said review board. To ensure to enclosure A and annex to Appendix to enclosure A of the Northwoods document were first published online by the National Security Archives on November 6, 1998. I just lost my place. There it is. In a joint vendor with CNN as part of CNN's 1998 Cold War television documentary series, specifically as the Northwoods document was published online in a complete. That was the wrong. I'm sorry, I skipped a line here. As documentation supplement to episode 10, Cuba, which aired on November 29th, 1998. Is the section of the document which contains the proposals to stage terrorist attacks. The Operation Northwoods document was published online in a more complete form, including cover memorandums by the National Security Archives on April 30th, 2001. And it continues on from there. You can actually find this operation on wikipedia.com. Now continuing here. Operation Mountain Guardian. Do I have that? Let's see. I don't know if they have that. Operation Mountain Guardian. Search for it's Operation. Secret. I got a secret. Back in September, major drill Operation Guardian in Denver near what? This is in Huffington Post. This was actually a recent one. Was it how recent was it? Let me get out of here. This is in 2011. In September. Man, my ears are hurting. Okay. Major terrorism drill Operation Mountain Guardian in Denver near was it near Elegant dates? I don't know. Was it Union Station will be closed to the public? This closure is due to a Homeland Security exercise. What does this drill do? Operation Guardian is a terrorism-based, full-scale emergency exercise scheduled to take place in numerous locations in the Denver metropolitan area on September 23rd, 2011. The exercise will involve first responders from 81 different agencies will be conducted at 10 separate locations and will include loud noises, simulated weapons, smoke, emergency vehicles, and other equipment that will be enabled and visible throughout the day. The proposal of this adversary is to provide information that can be made to the public ahead of time to avoid confusion or concern on the exercise day, as well as the invite media coverage of the event. Operation Mountain Guardian will be held at the following locations throughout the Denver metropolitan area. And it gets into that. What is this? This is the Sheriff's County Department. Denver. What does the exercise do? These are the objectives. 1. Communication assesses the ability to establish and maintain multiple agency and multiple judiciaries communications in response to a terrorism incident. Respond and decontamination. The capability to coordinate multiple hazmat response team and assess their ability to perform in response actions. Public safety and security response. The ability to establish scene security and crime scene preservation, coordinate a multiple directional, I can't say the word, response and manage intelligence. Man. Intelligence information in order to mitigate the effects of the event. Explosive devices response operations, indicating the capability to manage and coordinate explosive devices response operations using regional bomb squad teams or on site. This was basically an exercise near different places and different counties. And I believe this was actually for the shooting in a movie theater. But I don't know too much about this operation. But let's just move ahead here. For some reason, I can't find it. I did find some of it. Well, I did find some of it, so I'm going to go to, last but not least, the Project MK Ultra. Let's see how much time I got. I don't think I have enough time. Yeah, I'm just gonna probably finish up with the MK Ultra here, and do a little bit of the UN treaty. So, Project MK Ultra. Here we go. Project MK Ultra, or MK Ultra, was a covert illegal human research program into behavioral modification run by the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency's Office of Scientific Intelligence. The program began in the early 1950s, was officially was officially done in 1953, was reduced in scope in 1964, further curtailed in 1967, and finally halted in 1963. Actually, MK Ultra is probably still going on. But it used unwitting U.S. and Canadian citizens as its test subjects. MK Ultra involved the use of many methodologies to implement people's individual mental states and alter brain functions, including the administration of drug, LSD, and other chemicals, such as the and other chemicals. Was it? Can't even read today. I'm so tired. But anyway. Hyphnus, cinerary deferneration. I can't say it. Asseveration. Fuck, I can't even talk here. Verbal and sexual abuse, as well as various forms of torture. Yeah, because they did torture them and also did hypnosis on. That's what it was. It's hypnosis and other different chemicals in the brain. But hey, that's okay. They also did other tests. The research was undertaken at 80 institutions, including 44 colleges and universities, as well as hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA would operate through these institutions using front organizations, although sometimes top officials at these institutions would be aware of the CIA's involvement. MK Ultra was allocated 6% of total CIA funds. Project MK Ultra was first brought to wide public attention in 1975 by the U.S. Congress through investigations by the church community and by a presidential commission known as the Rockefeller Commission. Investigative efforts were hyped by the fact that CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK Ultra files destroyed in 1973. The Church Community and Rockefeller Commission investigation relied on the sworn testimony of direct... I gotta take these headphones off. They're really killing me. Man, it hurts. All right. Anyway. Continuing here, investigative efforts relayed on the sworn testimony of direct and on the relatively small number of documents that survived Helms' destruction order. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act uncovered a uncovered of over 20,000 documents relating to Project MK Ultra, which led to Senate hearings later the same year, basically. Now, in July 2001, most surviving information regarding MK Ultra officially declassified. Experiments. I'm going to go into these experiments, and then that would be it. Well, actually, I can go to MK Ultra too. Of the MK Ultra program, began in 1945 when the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency was established and given direct responsibility for Operation Paperclip. The program received former Nazi scientists, some of whom studied torture and brainwashing, several of which had been identified and prosecuted as war criminals during the Nuremberg trials. Several secret U.S. government projects grew out of Project Paperclip. These projects include Operation Paperclip, actually, not Project Paperclip. These projects include Project, Charter, established 1947, and Project Bluebird, established 1950, which was renamed Project Artichoke in 1951. Their purpose was to study mind control, integration, behavior modification, and related topics. MK Ultra, the project intentionally evacuated CIA I can't say the word in made up of the demographic of MK, meaning that the project was sponsored by the agency's technological services staff, formed by the word ultra, which had previously been used to designate the most secret classification of World War II intelligence. Other related projects include Project MK Naomi and Project MK Delta. The project began during a period when paranoia ruled at the CIA. McCarthyism was its apogee, and the Soviet Union and increasingly China were regarded as moral threats. America had lost its nuclear monopoly, while field operations against Moscow would soon be thrown into turmoil by the obsession of James Jesus Angleton, head of CIA counterintelligence, that the agency had been portrayed by a mole at the highest levels. Its leadership was also fixated by the fear that the great communist powers were perfectly techniques of mind control. The Manchurian candidate made real the CIA. Therefore felt that it had to strike first. Head by Sidney Gottlieb, the MK Ultra project was started on the order of CIA Director Alan Walsh Dulles on April 13th, 1953. Its remit was to develop mind-controlling drugs for use against the Soviet bloc, largely in response to alleged Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean use of mind control techniques on U.S. Prisoners of war in Korea. The CIA wanted to use similar methods on their own captives. The CIA was also interested in being able to implement foreign leaders and with such techniques, and would later invent several scams to drug shams, whatever, to drug Fidel Castro. Experiments were often conducted without the subject's knowledge or consent. In some cases, Academy researchers being hold on a second, is that jets going? Sounds like army jets flying over my my house. Keep hearing them flying over the house. It's either that or it's a plane, but a plane doesn't sound like that for some reason. It sounds more like a jet, because they usually fly over like the schools. But hey, that's a side issue right now. I'm trying to get into the news here, and they just keep flying over the house, and they like doing that because there's a airline. There's a place for them to land, but yeah, that's McCarran Airport. There's an airport right there, but hey, they're not supposed to be landing in McCarran Airport. They're supposed to be landing in the Army base in Nellis, but that's okay. In some cases, Academy researchers being funded through grants from CIA front organizations were unaware that their work was being used for these purposes. In 1964, the project was renamed MK Search, by the way. The project attempted to produce a perfect truth drug for use in integrating suspected Soviet spies during the Cold War, and generally to explore any other possibilities of mind control. Other MK Ultra effort, Sub-Project 54, was the Navy's top secret perfect conclusion program, which was supposed to use subaerial frequencies blasts to erase memory. However, the program was never carried out because most MK Ultra records were deliberately destroyed. They were destroyed in 1973 by order of the CIA director, Richard Helms. It has been difficult, if not impossible, for investigators to gain a complete understanding of the more than 150 individually funded research sub-projects sponsored by MK Ultra and related CIA programs. A member of the CIA claims that not all of the records chemicals were destroyed. Some were smuggled out and kept in private properties and organizations. And it also gets into other things, so it goes on from there. You can actually find that on the Wikipedia website. Gets into all that. Now, I guess I have to end it here, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't have enough time. So I'm going to get into the UN gun treaty probably tomorrow, and it'll probably be like a 30-minute show. So thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you so much for listening. You can subscribe to this channel And yes, by the way, I did mess up on trying to read the articles, but you get the gist of it. You can actually look most of the stuff up on basically InfoWars and stuff like that. But if you like what you hear, you can actually subscribe to my channel, as well as also follow me on Facebook, friend me there, and be a fan of my pages, as well as follow me on YouTube. I said YouTube already. Vimeo, and planetinfowars.com. And you can also listen to the Close to Modern song that you heard in the beginning of this podcast, which is Close to Modern's Stay. You can also follow them on the links below. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me, and good night and good luck.